Thank you, Chair Moore. First, let me add my thanks to yours for the beautiful welcoming by Ahakalani and Dean Napoleon, who composed that beautiful Oli that he chanted, which is about the places surrounding this campus. Good news, for the first time in 2 years, I have nothing substantial to report about COVID-19. We are enjoying the continuing subsidence of hospitalizations and deaths, and the increasing return of activity on all of our campuses. And that will be continuing over the summer and fall as people become much more comfortable. As I reported last month, there are no longer state regulations driving our actions, and UH, like the DOE, is continuing to require masks in our classrooms and labs for the remainder of this semester. Our excitement is now really building on those of our campuses that will have some form of in-person commencement regarding the opportunity for our students to celebrate with their families and friends. Most campuses are opening the experience to anyone who graduated in the past couple of years and didn't get the opportunity to participate in person. Let me update you now on the SCR 201 task force and the work we're doing to implement those recommendations as directed by the board. You'll recall that in January, we submitted our report to the legislature. In February, you considered it and accepted that report and directed us to proceed with the recommended next steps. We have formed a steering committee, as I noted, with Vice President Debbie Kalbert, Christian Fern, and Debbie Hartman of UPA, and myself. We've been meeting weekly, more or less, mostly about that though, to keep forward progress. We have taken the recommended next steps as they were, and we have just reorganized them into more aligned sets of tasks. And we have 5 chunks of tasks, as we're calling it, around addressing unique productivity challenges, developing a buyout policy, simplifying faculty classifications, and then issues relating specifically to specialist and non-instructional community college faculty classifications, and then finally transition issues. The first are pretty straightforward, and the report lays out what has to be done. Where we really have work to do collaboratively is around specialist faculty and non-instructional community college faculty classifications. The steering committee decided that we really need to engage many more faculty in that activity. So I have asked all 10 of the campus faculty senates to recommend faculty from these classifications from their campuses, and we will assemble a group of those faculty, at least one from every campus, along with UPA and with representatives of the administration, to work together on what specifically we have to do to implement the recommendations that the board charged us with. Just a reminder that in all cases, these recommendations will go through full consultation. So nothing will be implemented without going through the applicable processes. And again, as a reminder, changes will be prospective, meaning they will not be required to change the conditions of employment for any of our current faculty. Next, let me update you on the strategic plan. This is another major activity that you charged us to follow through on with a pretty ambitious time frame to try to complete something this year. We have formed a steering committee, again with representation from all of the university governance groups across all 10 of our campuses in the system. We have established a website to monitor our progress. The steering committee has actually met twice and we'll be meeting bi-weekly through the summer as well. We asked only people who would be willing to participate over the summer to volunteer for this task. And some of you may have seen a system-wide survey that we distributed to really gather grassroots input on critical themes and emerging issues that people believe should be considered within a strategic plan. The first meeting was really a review of strategic planning. The committee had to get to know themselves, reviewed some sample plans from other systems, worked on the survey that I mentioned, and the group liked the exercise that the board participated in at your retreat to identify a snapshot of what success would look like in 10 years. And so the steering committee also engaged in that activity. In the second meeting, they reviewed the existing documents that you're all familiar with, I think, the strategic directions, the third decade report, the IAFP, the post-pandemic white paper, all of which we believe will have useful input for the next strategic plan. And next meeting, they'll be moving ahead and beginning to look at aspirational goals. We're looking at town halls for the UH campus communities, this in April and May, so catching people before they depart for the summer, and then a series of outreach communications and events for the broader Hawaii community over the summer, so we don't just look to ourselves for all of the ideas. So things are moving pretty well, and I want to thank, again, Vice President Kalbert, Director Pearl Imada-Iboshi, many of you know, Associate Vice President Tammy Chun is also participating in that activity and helping keep it moving forward. Just a couple other items, a few numbers. Our extramural funding continues to be doing extraordinarily well. As of this morning, we're over 422 million as a system. That's an increase of over 40 million year to date over last year, which is about, it's over a 10% increase, almost 11. Registration has now started. I'm not going to give you numbers. It's a little bit early for them to be useful, but this is our best metric for really predicting who's going to show up if they actually register for classes. So far, there are no major surprises. We're following prior trends. So far, Manoa in particular appears to be continuing its positive upward trend. And lastly, let me just share a little bit about athletics at UH Mānoa. This year actually began with a lot of pretty unpleasant drama at the legislature around athletics at UH Mānoa. And I just want to say, in spite of that beginning, we are really at a pretty wonderful place now. Our new football coach, Timmy Chang, has energized the program and the entire community in a way we really haven't seen for years. The Island Day event last Saturday was a tremendous success. I had a local CEO stop me at breakfast yesterday just to tell me how much he enjoyed it. And this is somebody who has sponsored one of the boxes at the etching field. Our men's and women's basketball teams finished their season quite strong. The women won the Big West Championship and went on to March Madness, which was labeled March Madness for the women for the first time. They got a charter flight as part of the NCAA's new treatment of women, better than in the past, if not all the way up to the way they treat the men. Our men's basketball team made it to the conference semifinals, which was really quite an accomplishment given a seriously injury-plagued season, starting with the loss of 2 starters before the first game and the loss of our top scorer just before the end of the season, and 2 of our major players losing 6 weeks in the middle of the season to injury and illness. Our women's golf team was the conference co-champion, and right now underway, we're doing quite well in softball, enjoying the beautiful new facility upgrade that Regent Tacoba, Regent Moore were able to participate in celebrating Open Up. Baseball under our new head coach is quite exciting. You met him and you could see the energy he's brought to baseball. Our women's sailing team won its way into the national championships under Andy Johnson, who is actually our longest serving head coach, over 30 years here at UH Mānoa. And let me just close by saying this weekend, if you don't have something to do at UH Mānoa in the evenings and you're not planning to come to the games, I would suggest avoiding campus. We are hosting two major events. We will have the Big West Championships for both men's volleyball and women's water polo. In both of these sports, we are ranked 4th in the nation. And in both cases, hosting the Big West Championships, we hope will launch us on to the national championships as well. So people are feeling pretty good about athletics at this point in the year.
We're right at the point in the legislature where we're in the last 2 weeks of the regular scheduled session. Legislature is just right now kicking off the last major milestone in the process, which is conference committees. So this will be the last legislative update that you will hear for this year before the end of session. Knock on wood. So this presentation, as in the past, I'm going to go through the most significant measure, which is the supplemental budget that is also being taken up this week in conference committee. It will be one of the signature bills to lead the conference committee session. I'll give you an update on those particular bills, the admin bills and the bills of interest that are actually still alive into conference committee. And then just the last few of the legislative calendar milestones. The update through this week, the university has submitted more than 423 pieces of individual testimonies. There were 2,505 bills introduced, of which the university has ended up tracking 637 bills, 637 of those bills, 276 in the House, 361 in the Senate. And at this point, there are 124 bills that are still alive moving into conference. So right now on the budget, for the operating budget, this is the Senate draft of the budget that has crossed back over to the originating body into conference committee now. I would say the university has, just looking at the numbers in terms of the budget, has done very well. The Senate has provided a significant amount of additional funding proposed to the university, about $274.8 million, more than what is currently proposed or currently for in the current year for the university. That compares to the House version of the budget, which was $129.4 million above what the university currently gets. Now, I would say that although the numbers in the aggregate are very good on the operating budget, there are a number of highlights or certain things, details within the Senate version of the budget that we should point out. And these are only a section of the selective highlights. So compared to what the Board of Regents had recommended for inclusion in the budget, nearly all of those are satisfied in both the House and the Senate versions of the budget. So there's demonstrated support. And this includes restoration of the general fund reductions that were affected last legislative session for about $42.5 million. And nearly all of the additional other items that are also reflected in the House version. So that includes the Regent's request for athletics, the governor's request for additional funding for athletics, and both the House and the Senate have increased the amount that they're proposing for athletics and for funding in various amounts for Manoa and Hilo athletics. Now, one thing though that is not included in the Senate drafted budget is general fund restorations to UH West Oahu. That was about $1,080,000. So the end result is actually based on the Senate version of the budget. UH West Oahu would actually have just about $190,000 less next year than they currently have appropriated for this year. For Hawaiʻi Promise program, although this was not included as part of the Regents' ask of the budget, there is a significant amount of funding proposed in both the House and the Senate draft of the budget towards Hawaiʻi Promise program, including the House version does try to seek to provide funding for expansion of Hawaiʻi Promise to the 4-year campuses, while the Senate draft does not do that, but it does increase the proposed funding amount for Hawaiʻi Promise to the community colleges. In total, when we're looking at the second to the last bullet point, is that there is a good amount of legislative add-ons into a number of areas, about 6.6 million at Manoa, more than 94.9 million to community colleges, and 93+ million to overall system-wide support. The last two areas are largely seeking to fund items for repair and maintenance, studies of various sorts, some program initiatives. Most of this is not items that UH has identified. So these are legislative inspired initiatives. On the personnel side, there's in the Senate draft, there's about 94.5 million full-time equivalent positions across all means of financing that are identified for elimination. About 38.5 of those are general fund authorized or appropriated positions. All but 3 of those are vacant positions. So there are 3 currently filled positions that are being identified for elimination. One of those positions is in your Board of Regents offices. The table that we normally include that would show you the progression on the operating budget from the board request to the governor's proposed request to the House draft version to the Senate draft version is not, I'm not presenting it in this presentation. It's very, very long, mostly because the Senate approach in the budget has a long list of individual items that they are identifying versus the House draft approach had more aggregate lump sum funding. So if you are interested to see the comparison, there is a table. It was presented and distributed throughout the University of Hawaii community with the help of our communications office earlier this week. The link is here on this on the screen. And in your packet materials, I believe the link is also live. So if you really want to see the comparison, please utilize the provided link. On the capital budget side, this is the table that I'm referencing on the operating. The capital budget side, equally good in terms of the Senate draft. More in the Senate draft of the budget, there is more capital funding proposed than UH had asked for, or that the governor had even supported, including in the original governor's budget ask. And it's significantly more than was included in the House. So the Senate draft of the budget right now is about 117 million in capital funding, coupled with the roughly about 180+ million in R&M or other project work that's cash funded on the operating side. It's a significant amount that is contributed towards or proposed to be contributed towards facilities. One thing that's added to this presentation based on the Senate version of the budget, there's a lot of what's called provisos And we've listed them out in this presentation for you. There's actually 24 provisos that are included in the budget. And these provisos basically put conditions or requirements on the appropriations that are included in the Senate draft of the budget. I'm not going to read them, each of them here for this presentation, but they are listed out. So please, read them at your leisure. And if anybody wants the actual details, the narrative verbiage that are associated to each of these provisos that spell out the requirements or the restrictions on these provisos, please email me or let me know afterwards. I'll be happy to send you it. It's the list is very long, and so the material is also pretty lengthy as well. Okay, for the UH administrative package bills, there are none that survived to conference, so there's nothing to report here. None of the bills that UH had asked for as admin bills have survived to conference. So we'll go through the much shorter list of bills of interest that are still alive. These are bills that were referenced in previous presentations. Now, given the way conference committees work, the descriptions that I'm going to go, I won't actually go through all the details of bills because the descriptions of the bills can be very fluid now, depending on where the conference committees may have discussed or adjusted on the bills. So these descriptions represent the last published descriptions heading into conference. So for the Board of Regents, bills related to the way boards and commissions, including the Board of Regents, can conduct themselves for virtual meetings or material publications are in conference. HB 2206 did include appropriations for funding for athletics. This bill is also in conference committee. Not the House or the Senate has identified conference committee members for all of these bills, and that includes for that one. Sorry, making sure that the screen's changing. Okay. Okay, relating to loan repayment for healthcare professionals and medical education training. Okay, thank you. Those bills are also still alive. However, and UH has supported them in the past, this past session. However, as of yesterday, House Conference Committee's members have not been identified. The Maunakea bill, this bill had some pretty interesting drama late this session, but there is a version that isn't to conference, and both houses have identified conference committees as well, conference committee appointees as well. The pro rata bill for OHA has also made it through, although conference committees for the House have not been identified yet. And then related to procurement for agriculture goods, 2 bills. One specifically with impact to the University of Hawaii, or explicit impact to the University of Hawaii, are in conference committees. For this one, Senate has not identified committee appointees yet. We have had work during the session to try to make sure that the University of Hawaii could actually satisfy and could be supportive with the overall objective and intent of both of these bills. And then changing a bill to change the residency requirements for certain types of tuition. This bill is also into conference committee, and the university has supported this during the session. Relating to specific UH assets, we did cover this late last month. The bill that matched to last year to give the HHSC, Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, the ability to reposition the Leahi Hospital and the Leahi Hospital parcel to the Department of Health. UH, that is a UH property, and UH had been supportive, and the bill would have given more time to effectuate that transition. So we are still supportive. The other bill, which is a adjoining parcel near to this campus, which seeks to take it away from UH and instead give it to Department of Hawaiian Homelands. That bill is also still alive, and university, our official position had been to oppose. That's it through the bills. On the Regents side, earlier this week, 2 regents nominated, or regent nominees of the governor to the board did go through their committee confirmation process. And so nominees Lori Tochiki and nominee Gabriel Lee. Their floor votes for confirmation is still pending. And lastly, on the legislative calendar for the last 2 weeks, up through April 29th, next week, there are scheduled or anticipated to be scheduled conference committees on bills. There are last steps for resolutions that are still moving, both concurrent and regular single body resolutions moving through the legislature. The legislature adjourns on May 5th. And then after that, the dates that we will be watching for is the governor has until June 27th, which would be the 35th day after the legislature's adjournment, to either veto or signal intent to veto any bills. And then after that, governor has until July 12th to sign any bills into law, lest they become law without his signature. And that concludes the legislative update, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. So, Kalbert, you said the House had a bill of 12.4 million for athletics and the Senate 7.2 million. So would they have to go to conference on that?
Both, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that for operations, and what operations?
So they both of those were included in their respective versions of the budget. They both are in the operating portion of the budget. The legislature taking up those items outside of the budget, there was indications that it is basically for athletic department operations. Some of that was defined mostly to take care of the $4 million that previously used to come to athletics, which paid for things such as travel, nutrition. But the additional monies, some of that discussion that were identified were for things such as Title IX compliance, other operational funding for certain athletic programs. I would say that it's in the Senate draft of the budget, though, that again, with these provisos, there's a little bit more specificity as to what would be some of the things that athletics would be expected to use the money for.
And that would be exclusive or aside from the 18 million for the Clarence Ching complex that the Senate approved, or?
So yes,
Yeah.
so though the item for Clarence Ching complex expansion is specific to that project.